Student loans, man, how they are just messing up my favorite thing, which is education.
Brian, I am so excited to talk about this because it seems like the educational landscape has shifted, and folks today that are graduating or have recently graduated from higher education are facing a different problem, a different type of dilemma than generations past. And we want to walk you through what that looks like and maybe what people are beginning to do about that to try to help that out.
Yeah, well, I'm always glass half full, and I think that we'll give you the data, but also we're going to tell you how you can avoid this or navigate your way out.
So it's really interesting when you look at the stats. The average U.S. undergraduate, the average U.S. undergraduate graduates with approximately $26,000 in student loans. And that's just very, very different, Brian. When you were coming through school, it was not commonplace for someone to come out of college with 5 digits worth of student loan debt.
Yeah, it's one of those. We love education. I always say that, even when we were doing the launch of Millionaire Mission, I talked about my own journey where I felt like education is really the ladder of opportunity because you can better yourself. It doesn't matter where you come from. So it really troubles me when I see that somehow the system has gotten skewed to where cost of education's gone up, the amount of people going out there and having to go leverage it up and start out when they come out into the world, instead of thinking about how do we start putting our army of dollar bills to work for us, we have to think how we're going to pay back all these financial institutions. It just seems like a trap in a lot of ways. So we want to kind of help people because what I'm seeing is also this is playing out in decisions people are making. There's some data that's come out now with what are the younger generations doing to kind of address this headwind that's facing them. And a lot of them are putting off now, and we broke this out by generations, Gen Z, millennials, but you can see both Gen Z and millennials are putting off now, kind of improving themselves or taking opportunities for career advancement. If you look at it, they've soured on the thought and they're putting it off, additional education. That's probably with how much things cost. That might not be the worst thing, to be honest. And I am happy to report that the least of these three that we are reporting is that Gen Z and millennials, 17% for the Gen Z, 13% for millennials are even putting off having children. So this is going to have a ripple effect for actually multiple generations because of this headwind or this kind of ball and chain that we've strapped on to our younger generations.
But young Americans are catching on. I think the millennials came through this. Gen Z is recognizing, and now even the next generation is recognizing this. And young Americans are becoming more and more resilient. They're now doing things like prioritizing affordability, thinking more about like career readiness and having a bigger focus on, okay, what are the long-term implications of this? I recognize that if I go take out tens of thousands of dollars of student loan debt, I'm going to have to carry that with me into my career. And frankly, starting out in your 20s is hard enough already without having to also start in debt. So as we're looking at younger generations, we know that right now, 54%, this is according to a survey done by Fidelity in 2025, 54% of high schoolers listed cost as the most important consideration for college. I'm excited about that, Brian. When I was coming through, it was much less about how much did college cost, and it was much more about the experience. Where am I going to have the best Saturdays? What's the most fun place to go? What's the most prestigious name? It seems like high schoolers now are beginning to recognize, man, maybe cost should factor into this equation some.
Yeah, I mean, how many, and look, the colleges are not blameless on this. I mean, when I look at, I was talking to somebody and they had a daughter who was going to, this is a major public university. And I found out that every one of them in their freshman year is going to have their own bedroom, their own bathroom, ensuite. And I'm like, how much is this all going to cost? I mean, what happened to the cinder block dorms where you silo the showers? I mean, because look, I get it. I mean, as I get older, I'm bougier and bougier. But the thing is that we go to college. This key point, you go to college on how you can improve yourself academically while you're in this young stage of life where you can put up with anything. You know, if there's ever a time in my life where cinder blocks and just rows of showers that I had to go share on left side is showers, right side is commodes. this is the time when you're trying to improve yourself, because there's going to be plenty of time as you improve yourself to go have your en suites and all the other things. I think we've lost the plot in some ways with how we've structured college.
But again, there are some bright spots in terms of how the mindset is shifting. I just said that 54% of high schoolers have said that the cost of college is a super important consideration. Well, 61% of students listed career viability as their top goal for college, meaning when I go off to school, when I go get this vocation, it's less about the experience, and it's less about, oh, I just want to go do the college thing. And it's more about, what is this preparing me for? How am I going to use this next step or stage to prepare me for when I enter into the real world? And it's wonderful that young people are beginning to think through that, and parents are beginning to educate their kids around making those decisions well.
So let's talk about, because I've thrown enough, onto education. Let's actually talk about what you can do to get yourself out of this. The first thing we always say is know the tools available to you. Look, I was guilty of this too. Mm-hmm. I remember when I went to college, I way underplayed how many scholarships I probably could have gotten because just nobody was ahead of me telling me how to do this. Another thing that I was shocked, now I'm glad for my daughter because I have a senior in college, is that I had enough knowledge, or people had shared, done the experience shares. We did an ACT prep, and you realize just doing things like ACT prep, the amount of scholarships that my daughter qualified for just by boosting her standardized test scores. Yep. I think in my humble beginnings, I didn't know about all that stuff. I took that test. I mean, I probably got credit for my name. And then I probably, if you saw how the disparity between my English versus math on the SAT.
I'm sure it wasn't that bad.
Oh, no, it was bad. I mean, it was really rough. If I had anybody who had knowledge ahead of me, we'd have been like, hey, let's go do some prep and let's see if we can push those numbers up, because maybe you qualify for more financial aid. If you do that, you can take an active role in some of this.
Another thing that you can do when it comes to making this decision is measure twice, cut once. We used to always say that the single largest decision that most people will make from a financial perspective in their life is to buy a home. Well, we know that the average age of first-time home buyers is now at 38. That means that the college decision that you make will likely be the most expensive decision you make for the next 2 decades. So you want to make sure that you make it well. Make sure you're choosing a university or an institution that aligns with where you are financially. And don't forget that there are things like, hey, okay, maybe I don't need to go to the more expensive public university. Maybe I can go to the local community college and I can do the 2-year school and I can do the things that are going to get the cost down so that when I actually do graduate, I'm not saddled with a ton of debt trying to take it into the real world with me.
I want to tell people something that I tell this to all my neighbors and friends. This is a hack if you live in the Southeast. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Northeast, y'all are different. West, I don't know. Midwest, I don't know what y'all do either. But I know the SEC. I know the Southeastern Conference. And I'm always amazed when parents move into our neck of the woods and then I find out that they're touring like 20 colleges. Mm-hmm. I'm like, where do they want to live post-college? Mm-hmm. That is the key thing you ought to do. And if they're going to live wherever they're going to live in the Southeast, go to the state university in that. And why do I say this? Go look at where all the governors are coming from. Go look at where the business owners are coming from. Usually in the Southeast, because it all ties into great football programs, great business, bang for the buck, in-state tuition. It's just amazing. But people go and run up out-of-state tuition and all these other things. And then I got this from my own father. My father was a great football player. Went down, he was from Columbus, Georgia, went to Baker High School, but then he went down to the state of Florida, had a very successful collegiate career down there, but then he knew he was coming back to Georgia, moved right back to the city of Atlanta after he graduated from University of Florida, and he always said it was a big regret because all of his power structures were gone, all of the benefits. Meanwhile, when I was in the state of Georgia, I mean, it's amazing. If you go look at who I was in fraternities with, who I was in classes with, I know a lot of the power structure for the state of Georgia because I was in proximity to them while I was at the University of Georgia. And that's why I'm always amazed when parents who in the SEC, go if your kids are going to live in the state of Tennessee. Like if my daughter had said she wanted to go to UT, a lot of people would be like, "You're a Bulldog. You would hate it." I'd be like, "No, I love the state of Tennessee now." So I would have loved for her to go to Tennessee because I think that in the long term, there's a lot of opportunity to have proximity to people that will have some impact with you, and probably, that network is strong. But I'm always amazed when people send their kids all over the place and pay out-of-state tuition. They don't take advantage of the community colleges, because here in Tennessee, that's free.
Yep.
I mean, there's all kind of great opportunities. Measure twice, cut once. Don't let some college sell you on lifestyle, because they're not going to be there to pay the bills for you after you get out.
Oh, and that was the last takeaway, is that personal finance is personal. When you make your college decision, make sure you make the one that's right for you. Be careful. Okay, well, I'm just going to send my kid to the school that I went to because it was my alma mater. Or, hey, my kid wants to go to this school because it has the really fun Saturdays, or what. Don't let someone else tell you why you ought to make this huge financial decision. You want to consider your unique circumstances, your unique goals that you have related to higher education, or that your children have related to higher education, and pursue those. Because what you don't want to do is get 4 years, 5 years, 6 years down the road and think, holy cow, what did I just do? And how am I going to get myself out of this pickle? And be okay and prepared to adjust. That's why I tell students all the time, or parents who have students that are graduating, hey, if your kid doesn't know what they want to do, they don't know what vocation they want to go into, there's nothing wrong with just starting easy with a local community college to begin to get the core classes out of the way as you begin to develop and figure out what direction you want to go. That's not a horrible solution. So build in a plan and a strategy that's personalized for you.
Yeah, begin with the end in mind. Don't let some schools sell you on something. Go ahead and figure out how you can hit the ground running, because the reality is 5 years, 10 years out of school, once you get the opportunity, college is supposed to just open the door of opportunity for you. After that, it's kind of just it's part of your who you are. It's your part of your pedigree, but it's not doesn't define you completely.
That's right.
And most people don't ask you, other than on Saturday, what shirt you're wearing for the football game.
And it should be Georgia. So we love that we get to sit here. We love that we get to answer these questions for you guys, but we also love that we get to speak to the things that you actually care about. It's why every Tuesday at 10 a.m. we have our team out in the wings collecting your questions. So if you have something you want us to weigh in on, make sure you get it in the chat right now. So with that, Creative Director Reby, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Yes, I have some questions queued up. The first one is from Paximal. He says, congrats on 600K subs.
Let's go.
We just hit that this morning, which is super exciting. So thank you for that. And then his question says, is it okay to do both step 8 and 9 of the FOO at the same time? I automatically contribute monthly to 529s, but also throw the remaining surplus at the house. What do you think of doing 2 steps at once?
Paximal's onto something here.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, you wrote the book on this, Brian. But I'm going to tell you the way that I think through the latter steps of the financial order of operations. Once you pass through step 7, once you get into hyperaccumulation, once you're saving 25% of your gross income for the future, for your future goals, and you know that you're on track, you get to kind of pick and choose what you want to do with your money at that point. And for some people, it's, hey, I want to start saving for my kids' college. And for some people, it's, hey, I want to buy that vacation home. I want to upgrade to that luxury car. I want to do that home renovation. And for others, it's, hey, I just want to be debt-free. I'd love to start knocking out low-interest debt because that's one of my goals. So I think that once you get to step 7, what you quantify as an abundance goal, because for some people, an abundance goal may be prepaying low-interest debt. That's okay. You get to pick and choose, and you get to control your own destiny there.
Yeah, Paximal, I'm going to go ahead, and this is something, I have so many people who come to us and say, hey, when I started out, I was following this mantra. And I'm like, oh, you were a debt crusader. You know, you're trying to knock out the debt before everything else. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, but I usually have a question. Now, I was saying this was 100%, but I think we ran across a Making a Millionaire couple that actually broke my 100% rule, which kind of made me sad a little bit, because it wasn't scientific, but forever, everybody I'd ask this question, I'm like, no, you're right. That's exactly what I was doing. So I found out that there is somebody that's an outlier. Because what I have found out when I've gone to FinCons, podcast movements, and when all these people who are in the personal finance community, when I find out they paid off their house when they were 32 years old, or so forth, I always ask them the question. I say, hey, I know you paid off your super low interest mortgage because you hate money really early. When you're way beyond, way earlier than 45 years of age while you're still in the make wealth phase. But answer this for me. Were you at least saving and investing 25% first? And up until we recorded that episode of Making a Millionaire, the answer 100% of the time was yes. So these people are already loading up the Roth IRAs. They were already maximizing their employer 401ks. And yes, they got to step 8 of the financial order of operations. And they kind of looked at it and said, you know what? I want to be debt free. I'd love to have this mortgage paid off. Knock yourself out. We're A-okay with that, because the reason we can say it's okay is because you're not skipping the make wealth phase. That's what a lot of people, because you hear the argument that, well, I want to de-risk my life. Well, I'm like, there's a bigger risk when you're in your 20s and 30s. You'll never be wealthy because you didn't build up enough dollars working in the background. Because once that money goes into the house, yes, you might have extinguished that 3% mortgage or 4% mortgage, but what could that money have become? What's the delta between what the interest rate on that mortgage was versus if you had this money out there compounding? Yes, I know your real estate is appreciating too, but it was going to appreciate whether you had a mortgage or not. It's really what happens to that locked in equity. And that's the part. And look, a lot of people are going to say it's like, oh, you're one of those leverage guys. No, if you knew my mindset, it's more balanced. Is I think there's a time and a place. There's make wealth, there's maintain wealth, and then there's multiply wealth. I just want to make sure you get to the wealth phase and don't skip it. And that's why I think 45 years of age, that you've done the 25%. All these things need to be accomplished so that you don't get to my age now and go, yeah, that was probably a 6-figure mistake that I made by misprioritizing this.
Yep.
Well, Paximal, great question. Thank you for being here. And it is your lucky day because it is a Tumblr day. So if you would like a Tumblr, just email winner@moneyguy.com and we'll get one sent out to you, Paximal.
Can I tell you a cultural thing I noticed this morning?
You can.
And I want to take credit for it. You see these beautiful transformer tumblers that we have to model it both ways. Oh, oh my gosh, it's naked. You can see what we drink now.
We're not sponsored. Put that back in. Put that back in.
Sponsored. But,
quick, editing team, blur it out.
This is a koozie, but it also can be transformed into a drinking. Bo, is this the one day you're not actually using it in the appropriate form?
Did they washed it? The team has washed it. It must be in the dishwasher.
Let me get to the point.
That's a good.
The whole point was I was watching.
Time.
We have the Today Show on in the morning.
Okay,
and forever. We even have it. I make coffee with my wife. In the traditional, ceramic coffee mug. But I noticed this morning all over the Today Show desktop was a bunch of tumblers.
Money Guy tumblers?
Just like, they have their today. But somebody there was like, you know what? These Transformer tumblers are pretty daggone cool. So they have the exact, it looked very similar. You just different logos. But I was like, we did it first. Welcome to the party.
Welcome Today Show.
Yeah,
I do really like this tumbler. I use it all the time.
Oh, I use it constantly.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we have like 3 of them at the house, and there was I even called my college daughter. I was like, "Did you steal the tumblers and take them back to college?" Because I was one when I was trying to make my coffee to go. I sent a text.
Avery, if you would like a tumbler,
I
will hook you up.
You
come see me. I will give you a tumbler.
No, it was not. Look, she can have as many tumblers as she wants. It was more of what was access to when I needed it.
Got it. It wasn't there when you needed it.
The reality was they were all in the dishwasher.
Oh, it was a you issue, not a her issue. You just didn't look.
I think it's a multiple use issue. Truthfully, I don't run things through the dishwasher.
I was going to say, I rinse it out. Put them in the dishwasher.
Just a rinser and pourer, right?
But we have a lot of people in my household. Won't say their names. They like to leave stuff and then once it gets all caked in, creamers and all the other stuff, and then you have to run it through the dishwasher to get it off. But if you rinse things out while they're hot and warm, it's amazing how water is the natural cleansing agent typically.
Wild.
Love that. Hey, he said something interesting in that question. We had a Making a Millionaire episode come out yesterday with Dan and Sorsh, and it was awesome. If you've not checked it out, make sure you go check out Making a Millionaire. If you want to know how you can know when we have new ones come out, make sure you subscribe right now. We are right on the cusp of coming to 700,000 subscribers, which will be awesome.
On the cusp.
On the cusp.
I was going to say next stop 1 million, but okay.
But if you have not subscribed, make sure to subscribe so you can know every time that we have a brand new Making a Millionaire episode come out. We have some awesome ones in the pipeline.
That is the most Bo thing ever.
He'll now be saying, we're almost to 700 for
almost.
as long as it
That's
takes
it.
to get to 700.
Seriously, I think I can. I think I can. I think
Let's
I
go.
can.
All right. Next question is from Kara W. It says, hi, money guys. My spouse and I will need to finance 2 cars at the same time. With 23.8, do we aim to have the combined monthly payments less than 8% of our income or 2 payments individually below 8%?
Kara's not going to like my answer.
No, go ahead and tell her. Go ahead and break it in.
It's actually 8% for both.
For all car payments, all the auto payments you have to be less than 8% of your monthly gross income. So whether you have 1 payment, 2 payments, 5 payments, 10 payments, you cannot exceed 8%. So some people really struggle with this. I'm like, guys, I can't do that. To which we respond lovingly, perhaps you should not have 2 car notes at the same time. Maybe is there a way you could figure out, instead of replacing cars on the same schedule, is there some way we could stagger them every 3 to 4
Timing
years
matters.
so that once I get this paid off, I'm able to then have another payment, so that I don't have them both at the same time.
Why is that 8% number so important, though? Can we talk about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, think about it. Because not only are you going to have a car payment, realize we want you paying cash for cars. That's the
ideal.
first thing we have to get past. We want you to pay cash, but we have a no hypocrisy policy where I know in the beginning of my financial career, I had to have a car loan.
Yep.
I couldn't pay
Same.
cash. But I needed to have a job. So these things, to make it work, the bridge that got me there was something like a 23.8 because I had to go take a loan. And what this does, the 20% down, makes you have a little skin in the game. The 3-year amortization, meaning you're going to pay it off within 3 years, is going to force you that you don't go beyond what your wallet or your purse can actually afford. And then the 8% is now going to work within all the other elements of your financial life. Think about housing is 25%. Your car loan is 8%. We're trying to keep your total debt load below 35 to 40% at the maximum.
At the absolute
Because what
max.
we want to do is make sure you can still save and invest for the future. You still have enough money to go bedazzle your basic life. If you go out there and you run up, 50% for housing, 16% for your cars, and then whatever your student loans that you've been strapped with, before you're going to look at it and go, holy cow, it doesn't matter how how good my career is or my job is currently, there is zero left over for me. This is the component of discipline that we want you to structure your life so that you can actually live on less than you make, so that you can go ahead and start creating that margin that, given enough time, creates the magical recipe of wealth.
This weird phenomenon that I've noticed recently that I didn't know was a thing?
Okay.
Car shaming. You know what car shaming is? And I love this because financial mutants out there will so appreciate this. Sometimes financial mutants make the decision to drive a car because they could pay cash for it, or it was more reasonably priced, or it makes more sense for their family and their circumstance. And when you try to communicate this to the world around you, they look at you like you're crazy. Oh, why? Why do you drive that car? That's insane. You should drive this. You should drive that. And I've had this conversation, no lie, at least 5 times in the last 2 weeks. I'm like, no. Why should I drive that car? Why should we be driving that?
Wow.
Why should we change? The car that we have makes perfect sense for where we are and what we're doing. So for my financial mutants out there, don't let yourself be car shamed if you're making fantastic financial decisions with your automobile, because they can be napalm for your financial life. Don't let the world try
That
to
is
tell you
true.
otherwise.
Was that 5 different people that you had that
No,
conversation?
It was one dinner with
all
5
in Bo's household.
No.
He's not we all
Called
figured
out.
out.
No.
We just got insight into the battles that are going on in Bo's household
We went
right
to
now.
Who's
we went
car
to a dinner.
shaming
There
you,
were
Bo?
5 couples. It was a birthday dinner the other night. 5 couples. It was 9 versus 1. 9 versus 1 trying to suggest to me what automobile we ought to drive.
Well, that's because your wife had primed the pump.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure
She
it
was,
was like,
she was the ringleader of the 9.
because if y'all didn't know, Bo is still,
this is fun.
very functional minivan.
It's so great.
It's honestly really nice
It's so great.
Really nice. And I think that there is a lobbying source in the household who wants to get outside of minivans.
Oh, yeah.
That's
this
what
is such a fun-
we always knew the minivan in your, I knew, I'm sure Reby did too. This was a pawn piece in a big chess game.
Oh, for sure.
That has
very
been
obvious.
played, but now that a new piece is being played.
Yep.
But I do agree. I wanted to know what car shaming was, because I do think it's one of those things where there's a time or place. It's back to cars depreciate. I mean, there's something, and look, I'm now at the stage where we drive nice cars, but I look at it and go, these things are consumption and napalm for your financial life, because they depreciate like a rock. They cost a fortune to maintain. So
I think Brian
go buy something that's reliable.
opposite car shames. Like if
Opposite
you're
car.
driving too expensive of a car, when
Yeah,
you
yeah.
shouldn't be, he's like,
yeah,
oh.
that's right. That's the thing.
No, I'd rather somebody. I think at the beginning of your journey, the best thing you can do is be disciplined about the car you're driving. I still have if you ask me all the cars I've driven in my life, which ones still give me the biggest warm fuzzies? Now, there's an exception.
The
Jeep.
Cavalier.
The Jeep has an exception. You know, when I had that, because I was a season of life, that was more of a lifestyle of what I couldn't do at 16. Now I got to do as an older person. But that first car that I financed with the original 23.8, that Mazda 626 with 5 on the floor, and then it had the oscillating.
We're also not sponsored by Mazda either.
That oscillating, vents, which I still don't understand why more car manufacturers don't put an oscillating vent. Think about every cool fan that you've ever had. Like the fan I have in my office right now, I have a button I can put, and the thing it rotates around left and right, and it's kind of blows you here and then blows. The car did that, and I was like, this is the coolest feature I've ever had on a car.
So auto manufacturers, hear that, bring back the oscillating vents.
I love that Mazda. I thought it was the coolest car.
I don't know how we got on this tangent.
Just talking about cars.
We were honestly,
You're talking about car shaming.
we're wandering around in
Bo
the
was
woods, and me
talking
and Brian
about
just
car
looking like, where
shaming.
are we? Did you give a tumbler?
I didn't. Kara W, if you get if you would like a tumbler, you get a tumbler. Just email winner@moneyguy.com since we answered your question. All right. Next personal finance question is from Derek S. How do you determine if a 3-month or 6-month emergency fund is necessary for an emergency fund? My wife and I both have stable jobs, and our home hopefully has gone through most of the major repairs recently. So how do they determine how much cash they need to have?
Yeah, so this is one of those questions where personal finance is personal, but we can give you some benchmarks to think through. What we often say is, if you're someone you mentioned, okay, you and your wife both have stable jobs. That's great. That's a solid indicator. The next question I'd ask is, okay, what does the income disparity look like? Is one of you a much higher earner than the other, or are you relatively equal yoked in your earning? And when you look at the living expenses your household has, what are those living expenses relative to either one of the individual incomes, right? If the answer to that is, hey, we have a pretty modest lifestyle, we're both fairly equally yoked, we have stable jobs, then you may be one of those folks that a 3-month emergency fund makes a lot of sense for. But if you're someone who's like, okay, well, living expenses are a little bit higher, we have a lot of fixed costs because we have mortgage and we have auto loans, we're paying on student loans, and we have a couple kids, and we have an income disparity, or it might be harder for one of us to find a job than the other, any of those that you answer in the affirmative would cause you to potentially expand your timeline out to that 6-month of living expense timeline.
Yeah, you laid it out nicely. I think that what I would always share is kind of where stage of life too, is that I think somebody, when you're younger, even in that messy middle phase, like let's just say a staff accountant. I mean, that's a great income. It's a stable thing. That if you had 2 staff accountants that married each other, they both can probably be closer to 3 months because they check all those boxes you said. But if that staff accountant fast forward 10, 15 years, and one of them now is the chief operations officer or the CFO of a mega corporation, and they have a very large salary, they're going to have to move probably to replace that income. If all of a sudden they got laid off. So that's why the specialization, and that's why I see it all the time, like in my neighborhood, is that these are higher earning people. Sometimes their careers cause them, because there's just not as many opportunities, it's going to take longer to get that job. So that's why you need to, sometimes the higher your income, the more scarce your skill set is, you probably want to go closer to 6, maybe even beyond.
Sure.
But for a couple that's in the messy middles and y'all are both, like you said, equally yoked and you're very close to your living expenses, the 3 months, you just had to go through the exercise. I actually detailed a lot of this also in Millionaire Mission. So you could go through the exercise of trying to figure out, are you 3 months? Are you 6 months? But I know Bo gave a very good summary right there.
And another thing, people often forget to do this, but this is a great time to say this as we're coming up at the end of the third quarter, coming into the fourth quarter, sort of coming to the end of the year. One of our favorite things to do every single year is an annual net worth statement. We literally have a little celebration between the two of us when we do it and look at the numbers, and it's so exciting. I would encourage you to do the same thing. Well, one of the things that you do every year when you do your net worth statement is you should review how much cash you have on hand. And as you're doing that, and as you're putting your cash and equivalents in that box on your net worth statement, I want you to think through, man, are our living expenses still the same that they were when we established that was our emergency fund? Because if you used to spend $3,000 a month, but now your living has expanded now where you spend $5,000 a month, you want to make sure that your emergency fund represents that correctly. And far too often, people will have the emergency fund from a decade ago, not realizing it is not actually the emergency fund that they need in place today.
And then back to stage of life is that if you're somebody who's like about to land the plane in the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see your cash reserves expand, because just at retirement, you're going to go beyond 3 to 6 months too.
Great. Well, Derek S., thank you for the question. Hopefully that helps you think through your emergency fund. And if you would like a Money Guy tumbler, you can just email winner@moneyguy.com.
A lot of people loving the Mario mug today. Just wanted to know you getting some comments.
It is a good one.
I mean, I kind of, whatever I'm in the mood for, I've been jumping back and forth. I have, of course, the Star Wars motif that I do with the stormtroopers and, Boba, I don't know. Today was Mario.
Why so not confident about it?
Yeah,
I love the Mario mug.
I'd be more excited about that. All right. Never mind.
You guys are funny. All right, Brandon R. is up next. I'm being forced to relocate for work. Your guidance says to put 20% down on a house, since this won't be my first house, but my wealth multiplier is above $15. Why no nuance on the 20% down for the second home rule? And that's true. So to recap, you like to say put 3 to 5% down on your first home, but then on your second home, do 20% so you make sure you don't get out of your skis, right? So how should Brandon think about this?
Yeah, I'd want to know. I want to know a little bit more specifics. Most often, when we tell people, "Hey, the goal is to put 20% down on your second home," it's because normally people make the decision for a second home because they are increasing lifestyle. I had the home that I started in, but now maybe the family's gotten larger, or I want to have I want to have a bigger yard, or I want to have whatever that thing may be. So it's literally a lifestyle decision that I want to upgrade and change homes. Well, if you're making a lifestyle decision, we want to make sure that you're making it the appropriate place in your financial journey. And that place is where you say, okay, I had this house that I put 3 to 5% down, and I likely have been in there for 5 to 7 years because that's what I'm supposed to do when I buy a house. And over that 5 to 7 year time horizon, the price of the house has probably increased. I've also been able to pay down the mortgage so that the debt has decreased. So I have a decent chunk of equity in this house. Well, the way that I make the decision to upgrade is, okay, I know that I have that equity plus any cash or capital I've accumulated. I can put 20% down on the next house. So it's okay for me to be making this lifestyle decision. Yours is a little unique, Brandon. I'd want to know some more specifics about your situation. For example, when did you buy this current home? Like what were the details around the purchase of the current home that you're in? How long ago is that? Because if you bought this home last year, but now you're having to move because of job change, there may be some extenuating circumstances that cause the mathematics to be a little bit different for you. But then the next question I would ask is, okay, this next home that you're going to buy when you move, is it going to be a similar and comparable home to the one that you are leaving? Or when you buy the second home, are you upgrading? And I think that has to factor into the equation.
Well, here's what I think. He didn't say it, But I think Brandon is thinking this because he's having to relocate and he already owns a house, but he's getting moved. I think he's thinking this is going to be his opportunity to become a real estate investor, meaning that he'll go buy a new house, leave his existing, and start renting it out.
You know that he's going to sell it.
I think that's why he's asking the question, because the natural assumption is that you would sell your existing home and use the equity of that. And anybody who's owned a home for the last 3 or 4 years has probably got the 20% just because of what happened with inflation and everything else. So this leads to me, just putting on my Inspector Gadget hat, is that he's actually trying to keep the existing home, but he doesn't want to put down 20% when he moves into the new area. And that's why I want to give Brandon the why, because that's what he's asking for. If you look at the FRED data, meaning the data coming from the Federal Reserve on the typical American, and I don't want my financial mutants to be typical Americans, all of their net worth increase is in their personal residence.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, when I see that like net worth of the typical American went up like 25, 30%, you're like, hot diggity dog. Finally, people are saving, investing. They're watching the Money Guy show, and you're like, nope, it's all home equity. Their actual financial assets did absolutely nothing different. There's a big risk sitting out there is that people don't start saving and investing.
But wait till you see in an upcoming episode what financial mutants do.
No kidding.
That's a teaser. Keep going.
So Brandon, here's why this is important to you. You just said your wealth multiplier is this. We want to make sure that you actually are doing what you're supposed to. Now you're going to say, well, Brian, that's why I'm asking if I can just put down 3% on the new house. No, what you're asking is, can I be a real estate investor? Well, a real estate investor is step 8 of the financial order of operations. So I just, look, we've had Making a Millionaire. You can get lucky and become incredibly wealthy doing things. We had a military couple that they had some additional subsidies coming from the government, that they built up a tremendous net worth very quickly by never selling a house. And that is a very popular thing. But I also think that you can't sleep on the fact that you could take the $500,000 capital gain if you're a married couple, tax-free, use that with the new house, also use that to top off all the, put down 20%, but take anything else to top off the financial order of operations. I'm not going to shy away from that because I like you building assets outside of just real estate equity, because and people are like, well, why? Because real estate's done so well historically. Realize real estate is very illiquid, and it also is very capital intensive when things go bad. So I just want to make sure that you're not faking it and get caught swimming naked when the tide goes out, when real estate goes into the doldrums, and you don't actually have any true financial assets to give you depth to get you through whatever might be coming your way financially.
It's so fun. I didn't read that. I did not read that.
Well, why else would he be? If you already own a home, because second, he wants to get. By the way, it's also.
I think it's just hard.
No, I think here's what I think. I'll tell you what I think.
Okay.
I think his job changed and he's moving out of this home before he wants to, but he hasn't been in there long enough to have built up 20% equity for the next one. Right? He put 5% down, and his hand is kind of being forced because of this relocation. But in his mind, because he's a rule follower, and Brandon, I appreciate rule followers, he's saying, this is my second home. Okay. It's not my first home. It's my second. I got to come up with 20.
What? We might give it the asterisk. It's just like the government tries to has all these first-time home buyer rules. And you're like, well, I owned a house. And you're like, no, you still might qualify as a first-time home buyer. As long as, there could be some crazy extenuating circumstances. Brandon, put in the comments who's right, though, because I still want to know, are you the woeful me, I bought this house 18 months ago and now I'm getting myself in a pickle of a situation, or are you the potential real estate investor who's like, man, do you see how much I could turn this into rental property, out-of-state rental, which is less than ideal, by the way. I'd be curious to know what Brandon says.
When you're putting in the comments who's right, it's spelled B-O, not B-E-A-U. I just want to make sure you get that right.
Bo Hansen. Well, Brandon, as you're writing your comment and considering what Brian and Bo have said, you can email winner@moneyguy.com to get a tumbler.
Because I'm sitting here thinking, because he asked it so nicely. He said, hey, but my wealth multiplier is above 15. Why don't I get some nuance here?
That's how I read it too. I guess we don't know for sure, but I read it.
The wealth multiplier leans it in your direction.
You can tell which one of us will be the disciplinary in this with the kids, popping them around.
You guys are funny.
Wait until your dad gets home.
Yeah, you're Darth Vader around here. That's right.
No, I'm definitely not.
All right. Well, this next question is for Brian. I mean, Bo, you're going to have something to say too, but you'll see. This is a very Brian-esque
I'm going to go
question.
grab a snack.
No, stay here. Okay. It's from Eric 1. It says, can I count my DVC, Disney Vacation Club, ownership towards the assets in my net worth? It was paid for in cash. Brian, you're the resident expert on Disney.
Man. Don't use
You're
that
also
word.
a net worth expert. What do you think?
Oh, man.
How do you value a DVC ownership interest?
Look, I will say out of all I don't love timeshares, as you can imagine. I mean, but the only one, unless it's in the Riviera, which oh man, did they screw up the Riviera, because that's such a beautiful property. If you're a Disney person, you know what I'm talking about. But Disney Vacation Club is one of those unique things where it actually has done okay. I will tell you, I have probably done 3 Disney DVC tours, and always thinking, you know what, I am probably
like with the intention
person
to be.
Yeah, I have never pulled the trigger. I'm not a DVC member, even with all the perks, because it just the thing, and that's not. Is it A-Rich? How would you say that? Arch? A-Rich? A-Rich?
I said Eric, but I didn't know.
That's not to say that it's not a
A
good
rich
decision
one.
for your family. It's just that I didn't like and it comes back to the root problem I have with all timeshares is I don't like that they own my future decision making with all the maintenance costs and those things. It doesn't matter, even if the property or if there's an appreciation potential with it, there's an obligation sitting out there with what they can do with the maintenance costs, annual ongoing maintenance, that just was a bridge too far for me. So that's why I was never able to hold my nose and get to the point that I could do DVC, even just because it couldn't overcome that problem that all timeshares have, is that they promise you this great vacation at a minimal cost. But as we all know in the background, what's going on is those maintenance costs keep going up every year and getting restructured. The capital calls, all that type of stuff just makes it very expensive over the long term. And you don't get to just opt out. It's not one of those things where you cry uncle and say, I'm out of this. Now, you do have the potential where you can potentially sell DVC. But because of all the caveats and because of the control that the market has an outside influence of Disney, because, you know, if you've ever priced buying DVC property, you have to catch Disney when they're asleep, meaning that maybe that when they're in, you wait for the world's worst time where Disney is struggling financially too, where they let some sleepers through on the value, where you could actually get, because they kind of control where the bottom is, because they reserve the right to say, hey, if a deal's too good, Disney can step in and buy it for itself. So that's I've given way too much, but it's
Can I dive in?
Yeah.
Okay. I love all the Disney I'm trying to think through, because the question was, hey, can I put it on my net worth statement?
Well, the easy answer is no.
Well, I'm thinking
It's more
through,
of a footnote for the obligation.
And I'm thinking through like other things, other use assets that I might spend money on that may or may not show up on my net worth statement. I said like a country club membership. Okay. I have a membership to a country club, and technically, I guess I can some clubs I can sell that when I sell the house or whatever. Should that show up on net worth statement? Is there a chance in the future that when I sell the house, the membership associated with could go up in value? That's what they tell you when people get convinced to buy these. Okay, there's a chance, but does that mean it's a net worth item? I don't know. What about ATVs, four-wheelers, boats, other use assets that you have? Okay, can I put them on my net worth statement? Sure, I can list them there. What I would be very, very careful of is I don't want to put anything on my net worth statement where the future outcome is not a high probability thing for me. So like I could put my investment accounts on my net worth statement because in the future, there's a high probability they're going to be worth more than they are today. I've got history that shows that. But if I paid X amount for a boat today and I'm going to use that boat, and 5 years from now, I'm going to sell the boat, is there a chance I'm going to sell the boat for more than I paid for it? Is there a chance I'm going to pay more for this DVC property than I paid for it? So if I was going to list it, at best, if I'm going to put it on there, I'll put it on there at my cost, and then I'm probably not going to increase it at any point in time. So that if it actually does turn into an appreciating asset at some point, the only time I'll ever recognize the appreciation on that is when I'm actually able to successfully dispose of it. So in my mind, I would not consider it an asset in that or statement in the same way that I would consider other assets.
It's a used property.
It's a used property.
It's a used property, so it's probably more of a footnote so that your kids know what their obligation is if something happens to you.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's totally a rich one. I read it, Eric won. I'm so mad at myself, but it was all one word. So
I did the same thing. You saw me. I was trying to phonetically figure out how to make this thing work. I literally questioned it,
and then I was just like, I'm just going to read it and go with it.
Have we heard from Brandon yet, by the way?
We have not. That I've
Come
seen.
on, Brandon. What's going on here? I want to know who's right, Bo or me. Is it me being like, oh, humbuggish and old man on the front porch, or is it Bo like, oh, what was you? Let's help you out.
Well, a rich one. If you would like a Money Guy tumbler, email winner@moneyguy.com.
So now I want to know, a rich one, which property is his home property?
What happened to Riviera?
It's been a while since I did all my research on it.
Sigh.
But but that's one of I love the restaurant on top of
That's where
the
I
Riviera.
Stayed, right? The time that I went, isn't that where I stayed?
Did you stay there?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was new. It's one of the newer ones.
Yeah, it's new.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's gorgeous. They restricted. Oh gosh, you put me on the spot. I'm trying to remember, but they've restricted your ability to kind of your market or selling or using it for your units on other properties or something. I'm totally blanking on but there's a huge caveat that they only did it on the Riviera and it crushed the resale market on the Riviera timeshares. That now. You can get those at a much bigger discount because you're kind of locked in
right there
on that property versus a lot of the others you can trade out. And I think what Disney was trying to do, they got a little. The market was so good on DVC, they're like, well, let's squeeze this a little more in our favor. And I think the market kind of reminded them, hey, no, there's some things going on here. Somebody in the comments can probably, who's closer, maybe even a rich one.
Someone else said if you resell Riviera, the new buyer can only use the points at Riviera. So it does sound like they're just like locking you in.
There's a huge restriction because that's what a lot of people will go buy at a cheaper property.
Yeah.
And then they'll, eventually use that for Grand Floridian or other things. But they really restricted the Riviera, which was a very sad thing.
Interesting.
I knew somebody in the comments because it's been a while since I've looked at it, because like I said, I have been close enough to doing it that I back away, and then long enough for me to forget what the catches are, and then I'll go back in and get all excited about it, and then I'll back away again and over-research. But that's my personality, is I over-research and then forget. Over-research, forget.
Honestly, that's a great, for those of you out there, it's a great mental accounting way to protect yourself from making bad purchases. Force yourself to do tons of research, and then if at the end of the research you still want to buy it, it's probably a good buy, and if not, it fizzled away. And
I am not an emotional purchaser. But I am an emotional consumer, meaning that after I measure twice, cut once on something, and then when it works out well, I feel so much gratitude towards the exercise. I think sometimes the preparation and then the enjoyment are interconnected in that way.
Oof. Reby, I just saw a thing.
I saw something come through.
Oof.
Brandon has responded to the housing question.
Okay.
He said, "Are you ready?"
Okay.
Bo was right.
Oh,
I've been in the house for 2 years. He's been in the house for 2 years, and I don't have a lot of equity yet.
So here's what
that makes sense. That is a trick.
Here's what
Brandon, I apologize. I misread it.
Here's what
I misread it.
We don't ever want the Money Guy rules that we suggest as guardrails for you guys. We never want them to harm you financially. So you've been in this house for 2 years. You put 3% down. Houses probably have not in the last 2 years gone up a ton in value. And you just haven't been able to pay down the debt a ton. And now you're having to move. Probably want something you were planning on, job change, whatever. And you're like, man, okay, I'm buying a second house. I got to do 20% now because that's what the rule says. You're missing the spirit of the rule in that. But I will tell you, there is a learning lesson here for you to take away, since I'm just going to throw this out there. You bought this original house and you thought, I imagine you went through this thing, hey, I'm gonna be in this house for 5 to 7 years at least, and I can make the decision. And then that changed. Now you're moving to a new area. I would wonder, are you familiar with the area? Do you know the traffic patterns? Do you know the parts of town you want to be in? Do you know the school? All those sort of things. it is not uncommon. And we have clients that do this all the time. And I think it's a great idea. If it works for your family, there's nothing wrong with selling your current primary residence. Make sure you go ahead and like take care of that transaction. And when you get to that new community, man, can I rent for 6 months to a year just to kind of figure out where I want to be and to make sure that I love this job and I'm going to be here for the next 5 to 7 years? Because what I want to do is there's a really good chance that based on what you put down and what your closing costs were on that house, you may not have even like broken even at this point on the transaction cost to acquire the first home. So you want to be careful not just rinsing and repeating that if you're not somewhere that you're actually going to be able to be for the next 5 to 7 years.
Well, I mean, I don't mind giving the additional context that I think that you got to get out of the first transaction so that we can level set back to zero, because I wouldn't want you, even if I gave you the asterisk and said, hey, since this was less than 2 years, you're kind of in this unique situation, you could go do 3 to 5% on the next, because now you're going to have two highly leveraged pieces of real estate outside of your control with a brand new job. This is a horror story right in itself. But if you can level set, get out of the old property, rent like Bo said, I do think that there's probably some grace just in the fact that you never really got to live in the house. The rules are designed for you to live in that primary residence for 5 to 7 years, because guess what happens over that 5 to 7 years? No matter how bad your timing is, typically the time is going to be the cushion that protects you to where equity's building because of just inflation and other things, and you paying down principal. You kind of have gotten caught. And that's why we do have that 5 to 7 year rule in there. So you can level set and then probably give yourself an asterisk to kind of, once you get it back to zero, restart the process. But don't, and by the way, don't restart the process if you can't promise yourself that you're going to be in this area for 5 to 7 years. If there's any chance to go relocate you again, then you've got to probably, consider rent. It used to be corporations and others used to have these guaranteed or protection programs. I knew a lot of Caterpillar executives that they would buy your house or pay you, make you whole on any negative equity. The Great Recession ruined that for everybody, because now these corporations realize, oh my gosh, we cannot make that promise. There's a big risk. Real estate doesn't just only go up. So that game has changed completely. So you now need to, it puts more and more pressure on you, the potential homeowner, to make sure you go through our checklist. Go to moneyguy.com/resources. Make sure you can fully and confidently go through that checklist so that you don't get caught in a situation getting moved way too soon.
Love that.
Well,
we went back and answered a
we
question.
did. But that's okay. Brandon gave
Well,
us the
I mean,
specifics.
but I had to triage it because I'm over here just popping Brandon
Brandon
around.
wants to be a real estate
Meanwhile, he's like,
investor.
God, I thought I liked Brian.
I just took a new job.
Yeah, so shame on me. That's why I'm trying to read between the lines. That's where the personal and personal finance really kicks in.
For sure. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Brandon. Glad that you chimed back in. All right, next question's from DeSanche. It says, our army of dollars have been working hard for years, and we know we can stop saving and investing so much, but it's hard to slow down. Any advice on starting to start the weaning process? Any advice on that? How do they slow down? How do they know it's time? How do they get used to that idea?
Well, first, here's the exercise. And were there we's in here? We's and us's? Okay, yeah. So I'm going to assume there's like a family unit here or a couple. Here's the first thing I would do. And this is an exercise I would work through. I would take all the money out of the equation, like completely forget about money. And let's assume that money was no object at all. You have all the money in the world to do everything in the world you want to do. What are some things you would do? Oh, okay. Well, we would travel, or man, you know what? We'd redo the floors in the kitchen, or man, we'd really like to redo that backyard, or we'd do that. And I want you to list out all the things that you would do if money were no object. And then I want you to go through and I want you to kind of just mark through the things that are unrealistic if money is an object. Meaning, we would travel the world for 365 days. Okay, maybe that doesn't make sense based on current trajectory. I'm going to mark through that. But man, redoing the hardwoods in the house, we could, and I would list those things. And then what I'd do is I'd figure out what that list looks like. And I'd have my list of 8 to 10 things and be like, okay, is the way that I'm saving right now, this aggressive savings rate I have that I'm going to assume is much higher than 25% of your gross income, Is it causing me to miss out on other things that I would like to be doing or that I would like to experience? And is the sacrifice that I'm making absolutely necessary? Or is there a world in which I can still save at the 25% or whatever the necessary savings rate is for me to hit my number and still be able to do the things today that I would like to do? Because far too often, and we see, I don't want to call it a horror story, that's too aggressive, but we see far too often, Brian, there are folks that defer, and they get to 60 and they've got this huge pile of money. But then you look back and like, man, I wish that I would have done that trip in my 30s. I wish that we would have done the family vacations. Man, I really wish that we would have done the backyard so I could have spent time there with kids while they were in the house. You don't want to have those kind of regrets. And so you want to make sure that you're not sacrificing all of today for tomorrow, because the beautiful thing about compound interest and wealth building is you only have to sacrifice a little bit of today if you can do it early and do it for a long time period. It's the folks who don't do that have to sacrifice a lot of today for a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
Look, I'll put it down like this, is that the easy answer is always tell people you have to take inventory of where you are. This is why we talk about the net worth tool. This is why we talk about know your number, that resource that we have at Learn.Money Guy on that, of just going through the exercise, because you're trying to figure out, are you ahead of the curve, behind the curve, or right where you're supposed to be? But also what comes into play is where are you at in this journey? Because what I don't want to, look, we've done our Financial Mutant survey, and we can't wait because we're actually recording that content.
It's going to be awesome.
Later day, and it's fabulous. You guys are phenomenal. But what I struggle with is Financial Mutants. So many of you guys are in your 20s and 30s, and you're right there close to the starting line, and you're crushing it, absolutely crushing it. But just because you haven't been in the journey long enough, your army of dollar bills just haven't reached that bowling point of having enough time to build traction or to reach the critical mass. So I always tell people it's kind of a balance here. If you would lay out, the wealth multiplier, look at all the multiples of, for a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old, you'll quickly start to realize that for 20s and 30s, it just hits differently than for somebody in their 40s or 50s. And where this played out in my life is I told my wife is, look, if we could save and invest 25% of our gross income, when we get in our 40s, we'll be able to take our foot off the accelerator. And that's a choice at that point. Do you actually do it? But you're at the actual point. You can do it. And the question you then ask yourself is, are we maximizing all the memories and things so I don't have regret when I'm in my 40s, 50s, and 60s and beyond? And I'm happy to report I have zero regrets. I mean, I'm actually in the situation now where money just doesn't do as much. And that's what I talk about when I think employees are worried about go sell the business or anything. I'm like, well, what can money do? What can an extra dollar do for me today? It's just not the same thing as what a dollar could do for me at 20s or 30s.
Yep.
So I'm insulated from the money stuff, and it's a fabulous place to where you get to make decisions because of what you want to create or do in life with your family, with your friends, with the Money Guy show, with our audience. That's what I want you to be able to maximize that as well. Because I think, I've had so many financial mutants that write me they're in their mid-40s and their family hates going on vacation with them because they're doing it so cheaply. I don't want you doing that, but I also don't want you living your fabulous 32-year-old life just because you got a big promotion and you're making now $150,000 to $200,000 a year, but yet if you looked at your investable assets, you haven't even reached one time your annual salary yet. You're too close to the starting line. So there's a balance here that we're trying to give you all the variables so that you can be the field general that navigates this well. But hopefully through those things, because if you lay the wealth multiplier and then look at the timeline of happiness and satisfaction by age, you'll quickly see that you have a journey there that you can fill in and put the personal in personal finance. But there's a path, and that's what we've built it with the financial order of operations. We've built it with all the experience shares that I put in Millionaire Mission, because I think you'll see that we have given you the guide that not only maximizes the math, but man, oh man, am I a sentimental millionaire, where I'm trying to make sure you get to learn through what we've experienced by helping so many other millionaires with their journeys. of there is a better way to do money, and we've trying to climb the mountain and shout it out to as many people as possible. Because what's funny is we went to, I always screw up the title because I always want to say press publish, public.
Press publish.
So we went to that meetup conference. I don't know what you call those things where you get to meet up with other YouTubers. And it was funny is I never remember anybody's names, but there was some guy who was like an early YouTuber. Reeby's gonna be able to tell us who it is. And his whole presentation is how rich he got, how young he was, and how he got there and realized how empty it all was. And he was basically like, turn around, go back. There's more to life than this. And I think that's what we have tried to spend a lot of time is helping you make sure you don't sleep through the phase of maximizing and making the wealth, building the wealth through compounding interest, but also that you're not a miser. So you get there and realize how empty it is if you haven't done the right work.
Love that.
Love it. The YouTuber was Casey Neistat. I do feel like people might know that. So since you said I should say it. That was
Shows
fantastic.
how clueless I am. I don't know who anybody is. I didn't know who Sir Richard Branson was.
If we did,
You did.
We did.
And by the way,
recognize
he
him.
came to the table while I was in the bathroom, so I didn't get a picture. So it's okay. If you want to know why doesn't Brian have a picture with Richard Branson, it's because I was in the bathroom. It's all right. That's the way it should be.
Oh, I love that. Well, DeSanche, if you would like a Money Guy tumbler, just email winner@moneyguy.com. Like Brian and Bo said, we are so excited because we are very soon going to be recording the exciting content that we are doing based off of the survey that you so generously took part in. We broke our records from last year. We have
guys are
so much
incredible.
great data, and I'm really, really excited. So first of all, be sure you're subscribed to the channel so you'll see when that episode comes out. And also, if you took part in the survey, we'll be emailing you like a special note to let you know, hey, your data, like everything that you shared, your voice, it was used to shape this episode. So watch your inbox and subscribe to the channel and be excited because that episode's going to be great.
Man, I felt like we had a good time today. I definitely had a good time. We have a lot of content to record even after this live stream ends, but we don't. I think amazing day. Crossed 600,000. I mean,
almost to 700.
I mean, we're about to record the Financial Mutant survey, and you guys showed up in force, with so much so that we're even going to include it in the title. Likely, I mean, that's we're brainstorming this as we speak. Thank you. We don't take this for granted. I mean, when people come and do studio tours and when we meet you out in public, hopefully you can tell from our expressions that this is, my heart just beams with happiness because this is so far beyond what we ever imagined. The educator in me is just so tickled that Bo and I have created something and the rest of the content team. It's truly magical, and you guys are a big part of it. You are the heart of making that possible. So I thank you for that. So please take advantage of all the free stuff. We're trying to load you up on purpose. If you go to moneyguy.com/resources, we'll love on you, give you tons of free stuff because we know if you do what we say and follow the lead of what we're trying to do, just the success will create complication, and that leads to the next part of our relationship. You get to take it to the next level. Consider fulfilling the abundance cycle with continuing to work with us as in the professional capacity where we get to now personally know you and turn the personal into personal finance. I'm your host, Brian. Mr. Bo Hansen, Money Guy team, out.